we finally mucking around?
I think we're mucking around.
Let's get freaking started.
Let's get mucky.
I'm gonna muck and kill myself.
Oh shit. In a fucking hot goddamn second. Holy shit.
Doesn't this bring you back?
Dude, I was not
Fuck you, that's my rock.
Sabrina, the last time you played this game, you were not Sabrina.
No, I was using a whole different fucking pronoun than the last time we were doing this.
Wait, school shooting tier list revisited?
Oh my god.
I've been having this thought about my next like personal project because I've been doing a ton of game design work in my own time, but I feel as if because I'm about to do that for college, like I should take a little break. I've decided that I'm going to make a social media website, but I'm the only one who can post.
Truth social. Truth
Jeremy
social.
Renner.
Jeremy. Yes, the Jeremy. I fucking love the Jeremy Renner fucking app thing.
So and there's gonna be I have a couple really fun features. So one, you can send me direct messages, right? But they take a week to deliver. So
are we sending them by carrier pigeon?
No, pretty like that's kind of the idea is that you could send me grim omens where I know that a message is coming. Like there's a counter of messages that are incoming, but I won't be able to see them.
I like this.
People should be allowed to pay to get those expedited.
No,
It's like
I was
$5 a day.
I was going to have a system where you can donate money, and but because it's anonymous, it just puts your IP address and the amount of money you've donated on like a leaderboard.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Is the video entertaining so far?
Are you still here?
Oh, gee. Fucking hell.
Are you still fucking here,
Keep that shit in the video. I want the people to know how disrespectful that you just worded me just now. What's the video so far? What's the video?
We like just started.
Just fucking started. Oh my god, you are so impatient, and then you have the gall to call everyone.
Hold on, wait, you just started? It's 12:30.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
You know what?
That's what I'm saying. We were supposed to start at 11, and then everyone wanted to wait for Chase.
You waited for Chase. I said we could start. You said,
Right,
oh, they're gonna wait for Chase. I said, okay, text him. See if he gets here. Did you text him?
I didn't. I thought someone else did.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. I told you
Someone
specifically.
else texted him.
Will,
So-
what mic are you using?
What?
Hamburger.
What microphone are you speaking into right now?
Me?
Hamburger.
Am I a DEI hire?
Ooh.
Yeah.
No, because you were here like originally.
Oh,
You're a fountainhead.
Honestly, Tim,
You've been here.
That means a lot. That means a lot, Tim. Thank you. I've always respected you, Tim. Tim, I've always respected you.
I respect
though-
the hell out of you too.
Even though you are really fucking dumb, I really respect you.
Oh, dumb. What?
No.
By what metric?
By a few.
By which? Okay, Aiden, I want to know.
Aiden, you're not an authority on this, bro.
wait.
I've never particularly been an authority on being smart.
I jack off with my offhand.
Okay.
Is it your left hand?
Look at you, Mr. Ambidextrous.
Yeah, ambidextrous.
Look at you, Mr. Ambidextrous.
I can ambidextrous. You can make it bend to the left or the right.
What? What does that mean? What does that mean?
And that's a bar. And that's a bar. That's
Bible that. Bible that.
Bible that, yeah.
So I'm so ticked off. My boyfriend fucking left me like 2 days ago, man.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
You broke up with him, and then
I thought he was like the one.
Well, no.
No, other one.
Oh, different one. God damn
There's
it.
another one.
God damn it,
Polyamorous.
Sabrina. I can't follow your sex life. Ever.
Seb's a
That's why it should be a
polyamorous gal.
segment.
Here's the thing that you don't tell people sometimes don't tell you about relationships in general, right? Is that you can get fucking Kobayashi Maru'd in this shit, where you can play your cards exactly perfect and do everything right, and then still lose because the other person is just like not in the right space for it. And that's like, and that's been like my main like kind of like gripe with living at the moment is I keep doing things like perfect. Oh, not perfect, but about I've been trying my very, very hardest in a lot of aspects of my life to try and make it into something that it's worth living and is good for me. But then, like, it just something beyond my control, like, screws it up. And there's just a certain amount of, like, things you just have to accept that you're going to lose no matter how well you perform. And that always, like, it bothers me because, you know, you're taught that there's this inherent thing where it's like, you know, life is unfair, but if you work really hard and you make good choices and you try.
You trying?
But, like, I swear to, but
Honest to God.
it frustrates me to do things exactly how I'm supposed to and how I should. Not even necessarily how I'm supposed to, but to do things that work and work for me and then still fucking lose. Like, it's such a bummer.
I think if we are told that we are
Yeah.
really like that we are in control of our lives, I really think that we're just like one voice in like a bigger story. And like I think we want to think that we are like the center of it, and that we like, of course, you know, we are of our own lives, but like we really are just like at the whim of the people
Actually-
around us, and like anyone can really walk into your life and just kind of fuck you up if they want to.
Like I was just thinking, it's like, yo, what if I had actually prepared something when I tried out? Like what would I have done? I was thinking about this. Like I know exactly what quote I would use.
Well, what is that?
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee and pioneering singer-songwriter Tom York once wrote in Fake Plastic Trees, "Gravity always wins." That would be how I start.
Damn.
And that's like
Damn.
you know, like all the stuff that's out of your control, man. That's like gravity. That's like the forces of attraction and shit. And you can't even do nothing.
No, at some point I don't even think it's about like being a part of someone else's narrative or anything like that. It's just like there's just a certain percentage of like acceptable, like, or not even acceptable, but just like loss in general that is you just have to kind of get on board with. And like that's like such a like not a shitty idea by any means, but it's definitely like annoying. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. Like and that's just how things go.
I mean, things can be way worse than annoying.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but it's just I don't know. Like take Muck for instance, right? I was just fucking about playing the game as intended, and then fucking what's his name? Grok? No, it's Grok, isn't it? Grok spawns on top of me. Like, listen, there's certainly a skill-based component to Muck, but if you're dropped into Muck like me, and you don't know what you're doing, but you're gonna give it your best, you're gonna try and try what you think is the best job. Eventually, you just get fucking grokked, bro. You just get grokked, and that's just life.
So, but then you also
Because-
got us here to revive you, and then
Exactly.
Then you got me carrying
then you
you.
got someone. Always got someone.
And then you have,
No, it's true,
and then you have someone who has the wiki tattooed on their asshole.
We're trying to kill the Grok man, but what if we really should be looking for is a Parker to revive us once the Grok kills us?
Oh shit,
Yo.
Bars.
dude!
Bars.
No, immediately, bro.
Timmy, you're gonna have to
Bible
repeat
that,
that.
Bible.
Bible that. Bible that. Bible that. Bible that.
I would encourage the viewer to go look at the FNAF, every FNAF game in one video. It is genuinely impressive how long Aiden was playing these games for without learning how they work. Actually, I genuinely
I knew immediately where you were going with that as soon as you
I
started.
do not understand how you could play FNAF 3. Also, actually no, the video doesn't even do it justice. We were playing FNAF 3
We were playing for
multiple nights.
so long.
for hours at a time, and he could not grasp the fact that you had to play the audio in the room behind Springtrap. That took like 15 bajillion hours.
Dude.
It does not shock me that Parker knows the game a little bit more than we do with the same amount of time.
I really don't like the idea that everything happens for a reason, and I don't like that because, like, listen, I'm all for pattern recognition in your life in order to give things meaning. I'm like so pro that. I love looking like I love like the whole like there are cathedrals everywhere for those who look. Like I love that so much as like a thought process, but I don't like the idea of having like. Because I feel as if there's a certain, like, the sort of, like, spiritual, like, everything always happens for a reason, like, is trying to recontextualize pain into something that it just isn't. Like, sometimes people are, like, awful, horrible things just happen to people, and it's not about it happening for a reason. You know, it's just, I don't like that idea, because it is happening for a reason. This gets into the why would God give babies cancer shit. Like, I don't know. I don't like to believe in a destiny because it like people who are like destiny is or like any sort of like contextual thing about that are trying to make themselves like it's so I don't know, the idea of like a destiny or fate in that sense just seems so prideful and so like in ignorance about how many stories in people's lives go unfinished due to just completely circumstantial things. Like the answer is life is a canvas to which we draw our own meaning and our own conclusions from. Everything happens for a reason. I don't think is accurate. Everything has meaning, and everything has things to learn from. I'd say that's very accurate. You know what
You also like tragedy in the framework of like death and pain. It's like death and pain are like essential to life. You can't have life without death and pain. So it's like if you want to have life, and life is an essentially beautiful thing, even a life cut short because of like cancer or like whatever else, it's still a worthwhile, valuable living life. So it's like how can you say that the world is like bad when like even like the kid that dies young, he still lives the childhood, which is like worth like it's worth more than like any like worth more than anything you could put like a price tag on. And like with like sickness and bad things, it's all material circumstances. The life with like between that is like obviously beautiful.
No, and I get that, but like I struggle with the ontological concepts of worth in that sense because then it's like but that and especially in the comparison of life, right? Like yes, of course the child I'm under the personal opinion that like all life has an inherent value. But do you think that like the child who only lives a few years and dies of from a genetic birth defect has like a lesser total beautiful life than someone who lives a full time and has the ability to experience life and be kind to others? Because
I don't really think so because it's like because you look at it as if like this one kid is getting like gypped on a major scale, but really it's just that kid is like part of a greater framework. And I mean, I think like this is the kind of where you get into really like spiritual stuff where it's like you can just choose not to believe it and then it kind of goes away. But like after that, I mean, you become like one way or another, like consciousness is like not a scientifically explainable phenomenon. So something happens to that once you die. So it's like you either believe like heaven or like reincarnation, whatever, like doesn't even matter. Like the obvious thing I think, like if we're being honest with ourselves, is that the consciousness, the scientifically unexplainable like humanity that exists somewhere between brain cells and then pilots the brain, which pilots the body. It goes somewhere, it becomes part of something. The idea that like, and then like the idea of like specific like worthwhile, like you can't put numbers on stuff. There's no like seeing more things or seeing less things or living more time, living less time. It's not really like it's kind of that's where you get into the subjective stuff like value, whereas like the life is part of a greater framework. That's where it becomes objective. And if we're gonna make like big claims about purpose and suffering and death as like as a part of nature, I think we're gonna want to look at it from the objective standpoint and not from the kind of like fickleness of emotionality.
no, I get that, but I also feel as if the like again the concept of beauty in that sense, right? The beauty of like this connected web is like it's not like okay, when I think about things that are beautiful, I also understand that things I find beautiful and I find fantastic and brilliant in the world are not the same things people find. Like beauty, like obviously you can ascribe like inherent beautiful traits to things like nature or life or love or anything like that. But even I think that doesn't necessarily tell the whole story.
Yeah.
I think
no, because no, you're right. That beauty is subjective. Beauty is kind of
God,
given.
died.
I'm not playing another round.
Oh, okay, good.
It's gonna be like an hour and a half.
I feel like this episode has had everything. It's had the current socio-political topics. It's had it's been the banter. It's had the meta references, and it's had the deep philosophical discussion. I think we got all we need now is the monologue.
Aiden, I think this is art.
This is art. This is very artful. I wish I could have contributed more. I'm genuinely am not in a mindset right now to be philosophical.
You know, I think that
Why not?
I don't know. I've been like just thinking for like days, and I'm just like getting really anxious lately, and I think I need to like I think I just need to like play a video game and jerk off.
Like, can I read? Actually, can I read one of my most favorite quotes? Where is it? Right here. I'm looking. I'm not a woman of faith in any capacity in my life, but I stand by this the signed copy of the Prophet that my grandfather gave me upon my graduation from middle school. Some of you say joy is greater than sorrow, and others say nay, sorrow is the greater. But I say unto you, they are inseparable. Together they come, and when one sits alone with you at your board, remember that the other is asleep upon your bed. And I fuck with that heavy. I'm gonna have to go to sleep, guys, because in about 10 hours, I am pegging this guy into fucking oblivion.
What?
Because
I missed a sentence there. I missed a sentence.
Oh, hold on. We're pegging the guy, but I thought we were marrying M.
Listen.
Timmy, you're not following.
Timmy,
I'm not.
Timmy, there's more than one person in this picture.
Okay,
There's
hold on.
like
Wait,
9 at
someone pay me the
least.
picture.
Here's the cock and balls of this whole situation, right? So when I was dating a while back, had another partner at the time. So it clicked with me. I was like, as someone who doesn't get very clingy and doesn't get very jealous, and is oftentimes dating people who exist outside the social norms of the heterosexuality hegemony, I can just like date multiple people, I guess, and like have connections with several people. So currently my dating situation is that I have who is a wonderful, wonderful individual who I care for very deeply, who I just see occasionally, and we, cook food and drink wine and talk about books. And then, maybe kiss a little sometimes, but other than that, it's just very, very chill and nice. M is this absolutely drop-dead, gender non-conforming goth person who, like, genuinely I'm, like, big time in love with, who lives up in Rochester. And then I was dating, however, he has since broken up with me, very tragically. And,
So why are we crying over?
That's what I was saying.
If we like another in the bank.
Because there's still, everybody's still like.
If we're in love with one of them in particular, why do we even why are there even other attachments?
Because
The same way that, like, you lose a friend, It's like.
I don't know.
I don't fuck my friends though.
But here's how I'm gonna say it, Tim. Right? How on earth, there is no way culturally for me to ascribe myself and my development into a sexual development category that would is in context with a system that you are familiar with, because I especially spent my entire growing up period not in the shoes of a very traditional man or a very traditional woman, and I had to date for years with the separation of my identity of both romantically, sexually, and my own gender. So in that sense, there is no the rules that typically apply simply have not been built into me, and in a very nice way, because it's kind of what they were saying about the fish in the water. I think that's the kind of gist of it. Here's the deal though, right? No matter what, I did very much care for I really, and the idea it's essentially, right, even if you had a friend, imagine one of your a really good friend of yours, take sex out of it, right? Take sex out of it, and we're just dating for let's say there's no potential for sex, where you are simply just existing for the sake of having fun, because I know you have the very much standard Christian value, which is not at all a bad thing, about sex and restriction of sex is a part of devotion to your partner in a sense, which is totally fair. Imagine you have a very, very close friend, and one day they wake up and just decide that you are not for them anymore. And it doesn't mean all your other friends go away, but it's still that rejection in of its inherently does hurt, right?
Friends with
Not for a while. I need to it really hurt to essentially, and that entire situation hurt my feels pretty bad. So I just need a second. I'm not against the idea, but it just.
But if it's such a problem, why are we making all these attachments?
What do you mean?
If if we want to end
Why
up,
does
if we
anyone
have,
make
if we-
attachments?
What if we end up if we have our eyes on one prize, right? But it's gonna upset us if we like go for other prizes and they end up not working out. Obviously, like not panning out because that's not even our intention, and we know it's gonna like upset us. Then why go for it?
Because it's not like I'm dating to fail. That's not exactly my goal. My goal is to just,
But that's that's kind of like the obvious, and like the train can only run so far, you know.
Why do you make connections at all with anyone? You know, it's like because you desire connection. It's like
yeah.
Even if they don't work in the end,
even
I
if it
think those
doesn't
connections are
work
still
out,
beautiful.
it's still beautiful, and the time you spend with those
Yeah.
people is really
Yeah,
nice.
but it's a question of towing the line between it's a question between towing the line between like again going back to the kind of the more spiritual ideas of like connection and like communicating like with someone spiritually and bonding on that level, and degenerative tendencies where we're using people and we're just kind of like exploiting them like for neurochemical ends for like dopamine points.
No, and I get that, but I also think like, and I understand like the immediate fear in terms of that, but at least from where I sit, my activity, at least in the sense of how I act, is very much like I seek just intimacy with people who I think are like worth being intimate with, and not even necessarily, that doesn't apply like in a necessarily directly lustful manner. It is simply like act of being close, and the act of going on dates and the act of existing with people is nice. And I understand what you're saying is like the idea that if I'm
Right, but then why reap the kind of materialistic benefits, the more base aspects of the otherwise spiritually healthy relationship?
because I'm very interested in why you consider the things that caused this sort of issue that ended up ending the relationship with me had nothing to do with any sort of like the carnality aspect of it, if that's what you're curious about.
Yeah, but the carnality is what's causing the pain to a certain extent.
Question: what's carnality mean?
Like just like sex. But no, I wouldn't say that at
Got
all.
it.
I feel like
Yeah, I think
But
the pain is loss of the friend.
The pain is the loss. I don't
think
think I don't think Sabrina ever said the carnality was.
No, but there wouldn't be. Okay, I've never seen. Okay, the carnality is the reason that there needs to be a degree of separation until you guys can be friends again, right? Because if you were just friends and like there was some sort of like minor disagreement.
No, I wouldn't say that the carnality is the reason why we can't go back into being immediately friends again. The problem with the being immediately friends again is the fact that what he did and his actions that he took in order to break up with me were incredibly hurtful. And that is the rejection of me and my identity and my worth in that sense that has hurt my feelings. But I understand that he is still like fundamentally a person with merit, and is like I enjoyed spending time with and enjoyed being existent around. The carnality is not causing me pain. Nor will it cause me issues in terms of being close with them again in the future if that's what I so choose. It's simply this idea of like rejection of me as someone worthy of, as someone who I thought was like doing the right thing. Because my issue with it was like, again, it's in my mind I was doing the right thing and being a good partner and doing my best and like really trying to foster something healthy, but it just did not work out. And the way I was treated near the end there, especially during the breakup, was very unfair to me. And so my issue with becoming friends with is not that like, oh, having sex with someone now makes it weird. It's being treated horribly by someone who's supposed to care about you and how you think cares about you is bad.
All right, so then this specific instance is not necessarily related, but isn't there like a sort of cheapness to it anyways? Sort of degenerative aspect?
Like, I definitely don't feel that way. Like, that's not been my experience. The cheapest I felt in terms of at least like directly, like in terms of like actually feel like kind of spiritually icky about engaging in like carnality. But I also find this interesting where it's like the like this, I don't know, like when you're existing in something that is like healthy, and obviously I think the question of like what is healthy, but like the only times I felt unhealthy engaging in like carnal or lustful acts was when I was in the closet and I was not a woman, and it felt like no matter what I did, and I was not having sex when I was young, or I shouldn't say that entirely, but like when it felt gross was when I was not in my body and not being myself, so it felt like I was essentially like in this weird like gross state where I could not exist in a way that would like foster healthy existence, or alternatively when when I felt like I was being treated in a way that I did not um, think coincided with me. Like I really, for like near the end of my little tryst with just some like person I went on a few dates with. I felt pretty bad because like I thought they did not see me as who I was, and I felt like I was being used to a purpose and to a degree that I did not belong in. But other than that, like my experiences do not feel cheap nor unhealthy. They feel intimate and close and good, and the same way that I would share in a drink or a game or something that I'm seeking closeness with people who I already fundamentally care about. Like, and obviously, and I understand, like it's, but I always find it struggle when people discuss like the specific like Christian disagreement with like this sort of like carnality as like a fundamental sin and something that cheapens the experience continuously over and over as you do it. I think it obviously can become self-destructive, but for me, it's just like hasn't been, or I at least have not perceived it to be. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you got me in the long run on this one, which could very much be the case. You know, hindsight's 2020, I'm sure. But at least at my current moment, like when I witness the world around me and when I think about the experiences in that intimacy, it's not a gross thing. It's a very beautiful thing, and to you, it's a very beautiful and a very sacred thing. And I think it's sacred to me too, just in a different sense.
Yes, I think it's something that is like so inherently personal and so like, you know, so tied to our experience. Like, is it something that you want to keep, like, as you say, like sacred, kind of like exclusive, or it's something that you kind of like want to like share with the world and want to like
See what
explore
I,
more
under,
openly?
I understand the set perspective in the sense that like if you just don't see it like because it is a psychological argument in the sense it's like if you just don't feel it as a degenerative thing, or if you don't like see, if you just can't, if you can't like grasp, if you can't, no, if you just don't, yeah, it's like if you don't perceive it as degenerative, then like, then you can't really engage with the idea that it's degenerative. What I don't understand is like people that like will buy into the romanticism, I guess, of like the Christian conception of of love and beauty in that relationship thing, but then I think once you make the assertion, or at least you allow the assertion that there is kind of this like higher once there is a sacredness, there is a higher organization to the concept of like love and sex as they relate to each other. Then it's like, then how are we like gonna have frivolous romps if we're allowing that assertion? It's like one thing to like not perceive the degenerative nature of of carnal pleasure, but it's another thing to be like to to like acknowledge the more careful realities
Well,
of love and romance,
then
and then engage in it frivolously. I don't understand
well,
that.
I think then your fundamental issue comes not from it; it comes from hypocrisy. How someone can hold up these fundamental Christian
Well, there's
values.
an issue with both, but yeah, I think the other one is like it seems to be like wrong, like, not wrong, but like it seems to be flawed in a more clear way. Like if we believe in love, then like
Right,
why are we
but
sleeping around?
But if I can I ask something with this?
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that as someone who's like, you know, experienced this like in both like experiencing it as like a very like casual thing, but also like has had experiences that are a lot more like tied to love. I think that it really does feel like such a, at least for me, different experience that I don't think takes away either from each other. You know, I think that like
Yeah, I don't think.
having had like more casual experiences did not at all take away from my experiences that were much more like loving and much more deep. I
Yeah,
think it's just an expression of different feelings.
yeah, and also there are a lot of like not spiritual things that are like specifically like non-Western or even Western in other contexts, which recontextualize, not like fooling around, but sex as an act of like worship in particular in terms of divine. Of course, it's outside that Christian like framework, but like, you know what I mean? Like again, when you talk about stuff, especially with like tantricism and like this idea of like sex as worship of the divine in of itself,
Hmm.
like I understand like the Tim, I'm not like in any way like refuting, but the genuine at least in my sense, right? I'm a sodomite already because the
I
like
mean, you do what you can. Really, is the question because nobody's. I mean, like nobody's like, in whatever framework you look at it, nobody's gonna be perfect. So it's a question of like, it's a question
yeah,
of just trying sincerely to be good.
no, and like that's my entire shtick is like I'm not someone who like likes to use people. I'm not someone who like goes and does things for the sole sake of destruction. I'm someone who has this belief that if I try my best and I
But what's
live,
the difference between that usury and like the kind of like I don't know than the frivolous sex? Because what I don't understand is because it's like I guess it's a question of like you can deny it if you don't perceive it because there's no way to prove it. But like it's the same thing with like gluttony, with pride, with wrath, with envy. It's like we can't prove that these things are bad, but I feel like it's I don't know. I feel like it should be like to a certain extent clear why they're destructive and by extension like there's an evil to it, you know.
right,
And then like
like
when you want to talk about like
I
romantic stuff, it's like
yeah, I think
are we really gonna create these bonds if we don't believe in them? If we don't believe in them enough to like sanctify them with some sort of permanence?
yeah.
I think you really do have a point, but I think that your your argument really does like I think discredit a lot of the emotional intelligence that goes into this kind of situation, and like the understanding that you can have very deep and like personal relationships that are like not inherently like that feeling like if you really are to consider like your soulmate a very divine and like spiritual thing, there's also like so many more kinds of relationships you can have. It's not just like you have your friends, you have your family, and you have your soulmate. I think there's so many other kinds of relationships you can have in your life, and I think that it's really, I think that like what you call degeneracy is really just one way of exploring those kind of relationships. It's
I
really
think
just one way of experiencing that.
I definitely see like definitely certain like indulgences in sex as to a very some extent degeneracy because I think it sort of have to be. It's a very easy human indulgence, but I definitely see like it's kind of like again, it's like I don't know, it's kind of like sex is kind of like cigarette to me, where it's like if you are doing it in moderation and with the understanding of its effects and like have fully grasped like what it means to you, then like yeah, it doesn't feel sinful. But if you're hiding or you're overindulging or you don't if or intentionally misrepresenting things in a way to give yourself the benefit of the doubt in order to continuously do something that you know can have harmful effects. I think the issue is not that like sex is harmful, is that sex can easily be harmful if you don't know what you're doing. Like to me,
But the action is the same. Like the cigarette is the same no matter like what frame of mind you're in when you smoke it. Like, and I will agree that the frame of mind changes the dangerousness of the cigarette, but it doesn't change the nature of the action. And that's I think what like I understand romantic exploration, but once you cross the line into sex, I feel like we're talking about it's another animal here. We're talking about more than just exploration. We're talking about like we're
but
talking about just like tossing around this like nature's skirt and like tripping shit over, you know?
All I can see from your understanding is, and this is probably a way weirder, but like all I can see from both arguments, it's like there's a certain level to the sacredity of being with a certain person, But from what I'm getting from Sabrina, and fuck, I'm too
Saved
tired
it.
to be doing this.
Saved it.
I'm too
Saved
tired to be
it.
doing this.
Saved
I'm
it.
too tired to be doing this. I'm too
5
tired to be
second
doing
rule.
this.
5 second rule.
5 second rule.
Are we
5 second rule. 5 second rule.
Like, there's point A and there's point B, but they just have another point in between.
I get what
Yeah.
you're saying, but
And
it's
like, yeah, from a
it's
look
more
at it,
it's more like forgivable than a lot of things, but to a certain extent, it's like, again, it's a question of severity. It's like it might not be as severe of a I guess wrongdoing if you want to view it that way, but like it's still, yeah. And again, it's honestly, I would even make the case that it's very easily forgivable because it's so like it's such an easy thing to fall into, but it doesn't make it like it doesn't mean we can just ignore it and act like it's totally like
Yeah,
it's totally cool, you know?
But I think what we're like inherently maybe disagreeing on is just this idea that like
it's wrong.
correct me if I'm wrong, like how you're considering it, but like I think the way you're saying it is that like you're making sex sound like inherently dirty.
The core fundamental thing is it comes back to the idea of like nature and an objective the spirituality between the things in the universe, the life and the conscience and the humanity and the unexplainable but perceptible realness of truth and way in the world, is that if there is a truth, if the universe exists as an expression of a certain truth, and the way towards truth is goodness, and how we live our lives is made to be an expression of that way and that goodness in its reflection of the truth, then we have to look at the thing, see what it is, also as how humanity has developed around it, and then make an educated decision about it. And I think the obvious perception, the idea that humanity has essentially evolved around, is around certain values. And I think if we're just specifically getting into the sex thing, I think I think all humanity is built around like certain and with all the seven deadly sins, actually, like certain like distinctions for the protection against degeneracy, and a big part of that is drawing lines around things like sex. And in the universe, and again, humanity is different because animals, they can't make moral decisions in the sense because their purpose is simply being again, killing and eating and living and then procreating. They can't make a moral decision, but humans have this different thing. So you want to look at it just a scientific way. Like an animal might as well make love because that's all there is in the purpose of it. But humanity is called to communicate and interact with the truth by living the way. Then that means looking at the human nature of the nature of sex as a human construct, and realizing also just by the wealth of moral data that's transmuted and developed through generations of geniuses and not just historical scholars, but even just the layman transfusing that knowledge into us where we have today. The kind of most perceptible reality is that where like there's a certain sanctity towards that indulgence and certain guidelines that almost definitely should be followed, or at least that you try to the extent that you can, you know?
No,
Like if we're going to
I
talk
think
about,
yeah,
we can
you're
decide on
making an
point B's
amazing
and point whatever's in between. Is I think we're taking too much liberty with the universe.
I guess
I think
so,
you make an
but
amazing point about like how like we as a society develop around like what like around our morality, and like we build these constructs because we know that they hold value. But I do think though that like our ability to change and like develop morality is also a big part of being alive, like not just following what previous
I think
generations have told us is moral.
It's a question of,
ability
do you
as humans
see
to make
yourself
our
as a
own
subject
moral
of the universe, or
decisions.
the universe is a subject of you, you know?
That
It's
is like the
like-
gift
I guess
that is
but
the gift we've been giving. The gift that you might say that the Lord's given us, the ability to make moral decisions, is something that we should practice and be able to
Yeah,
explore
but the
ourselves.
decisions are reflective of a moral weight that's imposed upon us. I think there's a fundamental difference, is that like I'm viewing this whole like universal construct as a this is the context to me. This is what exists above me, and I have a responsibility towards abiding with it. Whereas I think you're seeing it more as like something that you can engage with in a not, I don't want to say constructive, but in a transformative sense. I think
Yes, I think
you're-
that's
yeah.
still how I see it. I think it's
Which is,
something
I
that
think-
like we kind of live within. It's like I think
Yeah.
you see it as something above us, and I see it as
Yeah.
something like we are
I
a
think
part
we
of.
live under its weight, and you think that we, I guess,
Right.
transform it.
But the point with that, Tim, is that like I think because again you are operating under like a relatively Christian like frame set in this sense is like if we were living like 20 years ago, the argument here would be like I would not in my existence I would not there would be no way for me to morally engage in sex in any capacity because of my status as a queer person, right? So, and I understand you can make the argument like whatever, but the idea is that like the fundamental like because again you said the knowledge of the layman and the genius would have prevented me from engaging in any sort of spiritual act in your sense and or any sort of committed act in that sense because of my status and my identity as a human being trying to just like make her way in the world. Like that's kind of my shtick with it and kind of how I said like of course it's recontextualized into something different for me because what system was I supposed to like grow up in to essentially instill this value into me inherently? Because like obviously it's like you can make the argument that yes, you know, there's a reflection of the universe, but like monogamy is not a natural concept. Nor
It sort of is.
kind of, but not.
The nuclear
Not
family existed with cavemen. I mean, there's archaeological evidence of that.
yeah,
I guess so, but there's also.
but there's also like
And again, it's like this is talk about the restricted society thing. It's like it's to a certain extent right, but there's again, it's part of it is like so obviously like as again the knowledge develops, like you do like society does lose certain restrictions, and you can make whatever arguments about which restrictions should and should not exist, and that's kind of the core of it is that like over restriction creates not necessarily maybe more like pain, but like it doesn't create the degeneration, whereas like more liberality like allows the degeneracy and maybe like supplants the pain with the allowance of degeneracy. And it's
right.
again it's about finding your individual responsibility toward the universal meaning to the best of your ability, to what extent you can. And like you seeing society as a society is never going to be a pure reflection of that, but it is going to be a reflection of that.
Again, I just feel as if you have this again, this like concept of like, like I don't understand why, in this case, like again, you're saying that the structure of the universe is above you, right? But you're then like the conclusions you draw about the structure of the universe above you is based on what?
It's interpretive, so it's like there's a level of subjectivity to it. The idea though is that like you try your
Right.
hardest to align with reality.
Right, but
truth.
then, so like again, and then so in terms of, but I don't understand where then like, okay, right, like where does like okay, so in my case, right, I'm engaging in safe consensual sex with people who are also safe and consenting in a manner that we are both of us leave not feeling guilt nor shame over the action, nor feeling any major emotional consequence. But you do believe that there is some sort of inherent spiritual concept that we are missing almost.
I mean, if you're just because you're blind to something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just
Right.
means that you're missing some of the tools to interpret the universe's
But
truth.
my question there is then like, again, you are not someone, to my understanding, who engages in frivolous sex that would give you the context of understanding the spiritual pain of it. So then you kind of are
I
reliant
mean, I
on.
have some experience, I'd say.
No, I know, and I trust me, I totally believe it. Like, and listen, like it's that's not exactly the point I'm making, right? But how do you draw this conclusion, not only about the universe, but about your fellow individuals, and like where is this like? Because like I understand, like obviously, if you kill people and you don't feel bad about killing people, it doesn't make killing people better or not wrong, right? Because I do believe that you're violating someone else's like right, and you're probably dealing spiritual harm to yourself, whether you admit it to yourself or not. That the act of taking one's life does bear a toll and a weight on someone, right? They're totally down, and I also understand that like just because you see something, it doesn't mean it's not there. But then my question is like, how do you draw these conclusions about the spiritual harm of sex in your own experience? Like, where does this like knowledge come from? Is it directly like,
I
again,
mean,
is it
it's a perceptive question. I mean, the idea that you draw it along the lines of consent, in the sense of like, oh, you kill someone, you don't have their consent to kill them, is itself a subjective value assessment. You know, like
no, that's what I'm saying though, is like you're telling me that there's or like you're making the claim that like the spiritual harm comes from this grander, wider structure that like
it's just a question of you try and read it to the best of your ability, and
right, but
nobody's gonna do that perfectly,
what
and
is
you know.
your reading of it? And what the question is like, what are you reading into? Are you reading into like the flows and ebbs of like the cultural and spiritual norms that you associate with? Are you claiming that there is a wider structure that people can tap into to like establish this moral framework and realign themselves with this kind of like grand universal truth? My question is, how are you accessing and like drawing conclusions on these truths? That's my main like crux of the argument. Is it just like, is there some inherent thing that like I am missing, or is it
I
like
think
religious and
the way
spiritual?
I look at it, there's a great Noam Chomsky debated Michel Foucault. He's this French intellectual. He's not worth looking into.
You don't
'Cause
like so?
yeah, Foucault. Yeah. Hold on, Tyler. You know Foucault. Fucking Foucault. He's total dickhead. No idea what he's talking about. Really good at sounding smart. But Noam Chomsky had this debate with him about human nature, and Foucault just blabbed in French for a bunch of the whole thing. But Noam Chomsky actually made some interesting points, and this is that we're just gonna go down the brief rabbit hole. Is that a child is born? Yeah, his claim essentially is that a child is born with a certain with a certain essentially set of neurological tools, and that he is at the input, the linguistic input the child is given is substantially less significant than the output knowledge and the output framework, linguistic framework the child creates, and this is supported by data. Is that the child only gets a certain amount of linguistic input and is able to form these vast connections. And that the reason for that is because humans are born with a certain part of that psychological framework just built in, right? And I would argue the same thing exists morally, that people are born to a certain extent with that. I guess the moral compass would be the word for it, and that your lifestyle can affect your ability to read your moral compass, and that can create disconnection with the way the truth in the life or whatever. And that's how you lose touch. But I mean, it's not. You can lose touch naturally, anyways. You can lose touch just by like having a chemical imbalance. But that's also like that's often created. You can often change. You can fix that through lifestyle choices. Like, so it's just a question of like learning to perceive it. Because I think if you try hard enough to perceive it, you will at least be able to catch some of the pulse. You know.
Right, but exactly, but
That's
like
actually a really interesting point. That's a really like I find that really fascinating.
no, like, but like at least to my understanding and my knowledge, like, I'm engaging in a way that is like me being I'm currently more true to myself than I've ever been in my entire life. I see myself as a pretty morally decent individual who is again trying to self-actualize and have a formation of identity. And so if I keep it, my kind of my takeaway on this is that like to me I am trying to live a life that is to my extent at least like trying to be morally righteous in my own regard. But how do you know inherently that certain leanings that you have morally, like where do you draw lines between like morals that are developed again like post because of your lifestyle versus moral and because of your like surrounding versus natural morality? Like how do you understand
I
that your
think
view on sex is not learned, not natural? How do you know that your morals when it comes to sharing or ownership, like where do you draw the lines on
I think it's about getting the greatest data set. But I think the kind of the big, the obvious, the overlooming question that's like you don't really mention it, but the kind of the big thing is the judgment aspect of like, all right, so these are the moral terms. What's the judgment? What's the punishment? Essentially. But I think if you want to talk about like the moral weight of individual people, the psyches and the conscience inside of the you piloting the brain, piloting the body. The moral weight of that is based, again, if you're given bad data, and you're gonna if you're given bad data, I think the judgment is going to be, in a sense, more lenient, like in relation to the bad data. It's going to be like, okay, well, I understand. Like, it's going to be like kind in the sense that it understands that you were not given the opportunity, such as easy an opportunity, to be moral. But
Right.
I guess, but my only question is, if you have the moral data and it's more lenient, what if someone does the same thing without the moral data? Does it inherently make them even more wrong if they just don't understand what's going on?
Yeah, wait. If everyone like this is the whole knowing about
If I did something wrong, but I have the moral understanding of why I did it wrong, and then someone did the same thing I did, but they don't know exactly why. Why do I get a lesser punishment?
well, I'm not saying you get a lesser punishment.
You said more lenient, and that's.
I'm saying. Wait, so someone. Well, this is the thing is that if someone does something wrong, but they don't understand, they're getting more punishment. Are you saying?
Well, because you said you talked about understanding, and you said if you could like show your understanding of it, it could be more lenient. But
No. I said if you're given bad inputs, they then you might not be judged as harshly. I mean, I don't know. Actually, that's a disclaimer.
Yeah,
I don't claim
based
to
on your
know.
surroundings.
It's
Also,
I don't claim to know about the judge. That's the problem. That's why we don't address the judgment. Is because nobody knows about the judgment. Like, nobody knows the details of the judgment.
That's fair.
right.
That's fair.
But again, it's like that's my kind of point is like, where do you draw? Like I obviously know. Like in my head, I can rationalize because again I'm not a spiritual person. I can rationalize that stealing and taking things is bad, right?
Right.
However,
I like to live by the motto of it is inherently wrong if you are restricting the freedoms of others when you try to show the freedom of yourself. You know what I mean?
no. Listen, I trust me, totally dig that, totally on board with that. But if I were trying to prove, like, let's say, that my moral code on stealing is inherent, right? It's kind of like if I was trying to prove the opposite of what you were doing, Tim, right? If I was saying,
but we know, but are you really gonna let someone make the argument that stealing is okay?
no. But okay, let's flip this on its head really bit, right? What if I was trying to make the claim that instead of like a personal choice that I am making and like an inherent, like not inherent thing, but a complex organization in my morals that allows me to take this action, I was claiming that there is a wider spiritual sense. And then I'm going to say that, for example, instead of saying, oh, what you're saying, where it's like the moral obligation is to be monogamous and to keep this as an act of sacred, I'm going to say the opposite, and I'm going to say that the restriction and the inherentness of this will only lead to pain because you're denying your base desires, and that is not living within a spiritual truth of the universe, and that is immoral. And the living and being able to express yourself and exist.
Yeah, it's not something that you can ever really satiate. The more you feed it, it's like the big
Right.
one. The more you try
Well,
to
no,
feed
but I
it.
think
But that
what
was
I'm trying to get at is that like you can say that there is like an encoded, like almost like genetic passed on set of morals that we're born with, right? But that doesn't necessarily have to be the same with every person.
yeah, because
Every person can be like I think it's kind of insane to think that all 8 billion people out there are born with the same moral code.
Yeah. Or like Tim, like my argument here is like instead of you claiming that this is a satiation issue, what if I say that like the inherent restriction of one's own desires just leads to this people becoming pent up worse people who engage in harmful actions because they're creating this like backlog of emotion that they can't deal with, and that's not genetically or morally, like, obviously I don't believe this. What I'm saying is like I'm trying not to, like, if I was making this argument, right, if I was making the argument that it's actually a spiritual obligation not to essentially live freely and love freely because it is better to not, like, again, not resist your base.
Then you just get into the weeds. I think I would actually just. I think I would just have. What I would do is I would just disagree that a world where people aren't having as much sex is less healthy. I would disagree with that assertion.
No, what I'm
No, I
saying
think
though.
I think what we need to agree on is the fact that like I don't think that you can establish one moral truth. You know, I
Yeah,
think everyone needs to be able to live by their own
Well, I mean,
moral
there
There's no
is.
truth.
black
I
and
think.
white to
If
this.
it's something that
I think there
given
is the moral
inherently,
truth, and as subjective pundits, we try to get as close to it as possible, and we might disagree. But the important thing is that we're trying to get to the center. But if we can't
Right.
agree that there is a center,
yeah, I
then we're
think
just allowing
that's
everyone to go wherever they want, and that creates a discordant society.
no, and I get what you're saying, Tim, but I think the crux of my argument is that you're saying like, hey, there is something spiritually like valuable or something spiritually valuable about again monogamy and no sex before marriage, and then you're also saying and like which is like okay, fair enough, but I'm just curious like where do you draw where's like that's obviously the conclusion, but I'm like asking about like the evidence, at least in terms of like this kind of hierarchical moral truth, because the idea is that like clearly the details of that shift culture to culture, era to era, time to time,
Well, how much does it really change culture to culture?
pretty
A
significant.
good amount. A good amount.
Like
Mm,
yeah, I mean, if we're going
Bro,
by
there are
There's
cultures that farly disagree, and there are cultures that did exist and may no longer exist or may exist later on that do not fully agree with what you believe in or what
yeah,
is
it's
set as
very
truth to you.
I'm talking about
polygamy exists like as a sustainable social framework in history.
like a lot of native cultures, a lot of ancient China.
They had marriages in the natives.
Yeah, but they also had like
Same in
poly-
China. They had like yeah, well they had
The trans
discretions
people,
against.
kind of. They
Yeah.
No,
two spirit.
They did.
that's not true
Two spirit.
at all.
Yes, it is.
Wait,
That's not.
Yes, it
That's
is.
not true. That's not the
That's a
same thing.
that's a documented thing.
you don't.
Yeah, but it's not transgenders. It's not the same thing.
Well,
It's
it's
like
not
No,
trans.
but
It's not.
but it is like an expression of
It's an
like
like
the
uh,
distinction between like biological sex and like
Yeah.
internal. It's
Yeah.
a it's,
yeah,
it is
no.
the same
What I'm
concept.
saying is like if you're looking at like more like Greeks and Romans, like they're like concepts of sexuality, gender, and all that stuff was not the same. Like it just was
No, the
not.
Greek thing. Everyone thinks the Greeks were all fucking little boys, but that's not. That when that was happening, it was largely frowned upon. It was a socially contentious issue, and it was a subversion of the existing morality. And then they fell apart.
I'm
And
not talking.
I'm not attaching causality when I'm saying that. I'm just saying it's like it's not as though this is a sustainable framework being created
What I'm
where
saying
like
it feels like that this
they
entire
had marriage there.
your entire basis of this argument inherently, other than like the obviously the appeal to spirituality, is an appeal to tradition. But
Well,
and
the tradition is the tradition. Again, like we're all individuals here, but the tradition is a culmination of like thousands of years of human thought and
Right, like
human experience, human understanding,
also
human development. I'm
it's
not
also
saying you agree with you have to agree with it totally, but you have to at least acknowledge that like
right.
that it is more knowledge than we could ever hope
Yeah.
to achieve.
I think it's to me
Of
that's very
course.
true. I think
But
I
also-
think it's very important that we respect that the like ancestry of our knowledge, but it's also I think reductive to limit it to just one perspective and like one viewpoint on
Right.
like how we should
But
act.
it's not one viewpoint; it's a culmination of millions and millions of viewpoints.
No,
Right.
I think it's
But
very reductive to say that like
Yeah, but the fact
no.
that it is a culmination in itself makes it near one.
Yeah, it's
It's
well
like,
something
if,
that
if
like
you have to, if
Right,
you
well,
have to,
we're trying to find the center. We're trying to find the
I guess
truth.
so.
why
But it's
find a
like,
center? Why is it?
I know, but if you're still trying to find a center now, how could you prove and truly say that this is wrong and this is right if you still haven't fully decided?
Again, you're saying that there is some like grand structure which this points to in particular that supports this
I just think people need to live in accordance with the truth by living the way which agrees with the truth, and that's the life.
Right, I understand that, but you're again, but like then you're applying like solid or at least like variable, but like in your mind provable aspects about this truth. And like so if I'm saying to you like, hey, I've done a lot of self-reflection, done a lot of self-existing, I'm trying to act in a moral way. I have understanding of my own actions. I'm living in my truth. I'm trying my very hardest to be a good person. and I'm not feeling this like spiritual ick that you're describing, what I'm asking is that does this have like, is this a inherent flaw in my being and my character? Where are you drawing, like, where does this like spiritual ick, like, if I'm not experiencing it, where do I go to like almost like relearn this moral value that I've missed in my development? I'm asking, like, where are you drawing this
No, I know.
conclusion?
I really, I do actually understand that because there have been plenty of times, obviously, throughout my life where it's like the emotional aspect of it doesn't connect with the intellectual aspect. Where I believe this one thing, but I mean, I'm not like my emotionality isn't. It doesn't. It's not like always totally like behind it, and it's just a question of like, it's just a question of internalizing your beliefs, and because again, a lot of people, I think we're getting closer to like a time of half truth. A lot of people are not as people are becoming less honest with themselves, they're less honest with each other, in the sense that like you project one thing and you express one thing, but you live almost totally differently. And like again, like that's a lot of that is the communicative and technology increases. It's just industrial revolution and its consequences. But like it's just a matter. It's just it's an internalizing thing. It's a realigning thing. It's
Right.
just believing the thing hard enough because you are observing it to be true. Believe it harder. And I'm not saying that, again, you don't really know. It's just kind of a journey.
That's kind of my point, though, is like, if in my mind I'm living my truth and I'm not feeling this like spiritual issue, then what I'm saying is that like intellectually the way I perceive sex is in the sense of like, hey, we're consenting people engaging in intimate activity, and we're going to try and make this healthy and functional, and engage in something that is useful and productive and pleasurable for the both of us. And we are going to attempt to foster both healthy communication and healthy function in its surrounding and its existence. And then an emotional level, I'm like, I'm really someone who appreciates intimacy. I'm really someone who like again likes being close with people. I like having fun, and I do find this activity inherently enjoyable. When I have those two things work together, under the sense that I'm obviously going to be restrictions and not do it in ways that are inherently harmful, and I do not feel that there is some sort of spiritual ill to it, what you're claiming is that like somewhere along the line I have missed something.
I forward an argument, the most convincing argument of all time, the most backed up by historical, philosophical, every kind of evidence that there could be, argument that the sex is wrong, and that the sex goes against nature itself, and you are confronted with this like theoretical perfect argument. Would you not have to readjust your intellectual and then thereby your emotional framework to fit with what by all intents and purposes is this new truth in your awareness?
Listen,
Okay, wait. I'm taking a step back here real quick. I think that what Seb is pointing out is the in the way that Seb is experiencing sex, and all of the layers of emotional intelligence and consent all achieve the same, I think, moral goal that like no sex before marriage, abstinence all lead to, which is that I think the inherent moral goal is that we all want to have sex that is sacred and valuable and safe, right?
Mhm.
And I think it is just a different approach to that same moral goal. I
Right.
think that if anything, what we've considered, what have might been up over, millions of years of moral and thought has, led us to that goal. And I think what we're, confronting here is just two different ways of getting to that same point.
Right,
Right.
I
but then go back to the thing. It's like imagine you it is like the perfect. You hear the perfect argument against the way you intellectually and emotionally experience these material indulgences. Like, don't you have a responsibility? If
Oh,
that by all means of perception is the truth, don't you have a moral responsibility to align your intellectual and emotional being to fit within
no.
that? If you to fit that moral goal.
No, I think
Seb
I
is
think
already Seb is already aligned to that same moral goal. It's just in a different
This is
way.
assuming again, hypothetical, assuming I'm able to forward this absolutely perfect argument.
no, if there's like a direct thing where you can be like, hey, blah blah blah, this in a perfect
Sorry.
this this in a perfect manner, like obvious this perfect argument that hypothetically exists, like it would obviously change my behavior because I'm trying to be someone who operates under logical assumption that if someone invented, then I have to adjust my worldview and opinions around new evidence that has been presented. But my question is not that, like, in my experience, in my existence, like, I'm living as I am, and I do not seem to feel this, like, inherent spiritual, like, truth. And, like, in my mind, I am living my truth. I am living under this structure. I'm living in tandem with the universe and life that has been given to me. So now it's like, okay, if I was like, okay, I don't feel wrong in any way, but I'm keep being told that part of me should feel wrong.
I think the fundamental takeaway is that we should keep believing in the perfect arguments to the extent that they help us reach that moral framework, and by sharing them,
David,
and by then thereby taking others in,
David, you see
we're able
this?
to with better data.
No,
create-
I think to me, I think
create
where we
better-
one path to exploring the moral truth. But
right.
I think
I get
what
what
I'm
you're
saying is that there's multiple ways to experience the same moral,
but the
standing
actions
that we all
actions
share.
the
We all
actions.
share the same moral goal,
Yeah,
and
no.
we have different ways of getting there.
Yeah, but my idea here is, and what I'm kind of challenging you on here is this idea that, like, hey, if I don't feel this inherent spiritual ill, and, like, the structure is not, whatever, like, in your mind, how would I go about, like, picking it up? How would I go about reevaluating this subject, just for the sake of, like, self-insight? If everyone's talking about the spiritual ill that I'm clearly not experiencing in a major capacity. In fact, I am almost, like, totally safe and sound and happy in the actions I'm taking. But clearly, when you say, like, hey, like, blah blah blah, there's some, like, going against nature that I'm doing and I'm not feeling it, then obviously I'm gonna be like, oh, like, okay, well, if I am going against nature somehow, and somehow I've, like, in some miracle, I've been granted a situation where I don't have this inherent ill built into me, then, like, where do I go look to get it? Do I look at my cultural norms and attempt to adopt them? The way you treat it is based on not any inherent, like, moral thing, but just, like, again, the place you are. Because, again, the values on sex are very different. Like, again, imagine if you were born in France, Tim. Those people be fucking. That's, like, their whole thing. Like, and if you were born in France, you'd probably have, like, a pretty different opinion than you do right now. You're claiming a true spiritual ill, and I'm claiming, well, if I'm not born with it, how do I get it? Because, like, obviously there has to be some sort of argument that backs up, or a philosophical underpinning that backs up what you believe as a spiritual ill.
Right. I think the problem with
Yeah.
the question is that, like, if you don't agree with the assertion that the sex is bad, then you're never going to feel like and you've lived your life this way for however long, then you essentially can't. If you have to, like, you have to
Right,
make
right. But I'm
make
curious,
a decision to recognize
but the assertion is that the sex is bad, and then I'm asking, why is the sex bad? And then you're saying because it goes against nature or against society or whatever, and then I'm going, okay, why? And I think that, like, I'm kind of missing, because, like, my personal experience does not seem to satisfy these answers. It's like, I'm okay, like, listen, if I gotta stop having sex, like, who cares, man? Like, I got other shit to do. Like, I'm not so attached to this idea of, like, me being a free love, type of girl. But what I'm saying is that, like, I'm trying to, like, if I were to, like, want to pick up the assertion that sex is bad, if I wanted to understand the argument there, do I turn, and I'm clearly not finding it in myself, in my internal existence, where do I go?
Yeah, you consult the wisdoms.
But then the wisdoms are human filtered. I can consult the wisdoms of the Bible, but then I could also consult the wisdoms of the Thelemic Bible, which says things are totally different. But then again, aren't I just confirmation bias shopping?
I mean, yeah,
Because then
you
it's the
could.
same
The
thing
idea
of
the idea is
your.
you try not to, though.
Because
But,
then
like,
you're placing yourself in front of the same point of just every
yeah, then
Christian, even every Bible is presenting different paths
The different
to the
paths.
same moral truth.
again, I'm trying to like figure out, like, again, you say consult the wisdoms, but then it's like, well, what wisdoms do I consult? But
Right, I think I see the paths as an incident of human subjective like the human flaw and
exactly.
subjectivity, right? But I think it's
Right, but
not
your
the
your
divergence.
path is just one that you.
Divergence is not a good thing. The divergence is just a result of human failure, and that we should be trying not to diverge.
Right, but what I'm saying, Tim, is that do you believe that your moral standing as it is now is not a divergence or a perversion of some inherent moral truth? Do you believe that
I mean,
your
it could be. The idea, like the idea is that I would try to make it not, but it could be.
right? But I'm saying is like, how would I go about making it not?
Yeah, where do you find what you're
But
calling like an objective truth?
that's kind of the thing here is that like I've been told a lot about this objective moral truth, this like moral truth center, and that we're all moving towards it. When I asked like, okay, how do I get there? You said to consult the wisdoms, but those wisdoms are deviancies of the moral truth already.
Right,
So
but they all come from somewhere, and by again taking them in, you can make an informed decision, and the more informed you make your decision, the more
right,
likely it is to be close to the moral
but
center.
obviously your claim is that like whatever I'm doing in terms of my informed decision is not right because of your informed decision.
Well,
Like I'm not
the point is that we're having a discussion, and that like I don't know that like you try and come closer to the moral center.
right, but like again, I'm just trying to think like
It's,
again.
no, it's not because like it isn't like, nothing is because of anything. It either is or it isn't.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there are clearly gaps where things sort of are and sort of aren't. Like, and I understand. Like, again, I don't necessarily believe fundamentally in like an absolute moral truth. That's like not my vibe. But the idea is that like you understand that like by this framework, like we could both easily be as wrong.
We could both be wrong, yeah.
So you understand, and then like obviously, if we could both easily be as wrong, then it does just turn back into being to the individual to a certain extent. Because if
But
ever
you're not just deciding; you're just trying to reach the thing.
right, exactly. So, if in my
And then when it comes time for judgment, you're going to be judged more on how well you tried to be good. I think.
right, exactly.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
I never think that, and I make this argument all the time, coming from like a semi-atheistic perspective, being like, hey, like if I do my very best, like it doesn't matter where I end up because I would have done my best anyways. You know what I mean? I don't require submission of myself to a higher power because
As long as it's an honest best, because a lot of people say they're doing their best and like they're low key not.
no. Like I'm trying, man. Like I struggled for so long with like mental health and blah blah blah, whatever the fuck. And I'm in like a pretty good spot right now. I'm not perfect by any means, but like I at least try and be a decent. I really do make an effort to be good to those who matter to me, to do right by myself, do right by the world, and like I do make that a consideration and a point of my existence. Like as much as I am going to make video games for the idea that I like doing it, a lot of it is that like so much of my life in my moral development and my artistic development has been shaped by this. In the same way that like fucking Matt Pat told me go inspire the next generation of theorists. Like that is what I want to do. Like I want to be that like I want to be like that sort of thing for other people, if that makes sense. I'm trying to exist in somewhat of a functional moral framework. So my point there is that like again then obviously like circumventing, if we both equally have likelihood to be wrong, then obviously sex can be as spiritual and as important to you as you want it, and sex can be a different sort of spiritual and a different sort of important and a different sort of sacred to me. Then if we're both equally likely
I think it just is what it is. I don't know. I guess that's kind of an impasse, but
yeah,
I
I mean it's
I would
kind
like
of
to.
I just don't, because like again like I can try and walk through why I think the way I do and like give like a general explanation that's not like, again, it's not rooted in history, it's just rooted in my individual existence, because I cannot speak to history nor can I speak to other people's experiences that I have not experienced. But that's kind of my gist on it, Tim, is that like if we both can equally be wrong, then if I keep just doing my thing, then it's like, and I'm feeling good about it and I'm trying, then like what's it matter?
Timmy, I really don't want to like directly challenge your beliefs too much, as I think that you're making a really like beautiful argument. But the idea of a like singular objective truth that we are all under does, at least in my the way I'm like reading what you're saying, feels a little bit like historically rooted in the way that religion and faith is used as a way of like controlling people, and to say that like, you know, if you are really to be moral and good, you must align with this exact code of morality, which I think, of course, there's like, you know, a value in wanting to share your morality and wanting people to, you know, wanting to share with your neighbors the same morality that you have found. But I think the idea of such a singular and like strict code of morality really historically is just a tool of control. I think, especially if you look at like so many religious wars and how religion has its, you know, ties in kingdoms and societies. It is like, it is so important that we think what makes this time so special and what allows us to explore such like, you know, diverse thoughts is I think
you could use
this
anyhow.
liberation, this great freedom that we have now to create our own moral codes.
I mean,
I think that is what like
you can
makes
use the you can use the language, you can use this kind of language to like justify whatever, I guess, but that doesn't change the nature of the argument, I don't think. And I don't know. I think it's in particular the argument about religions creating wars is pretty overplayed. It's like if you want to look at the Crusades, it's largely it's like it would have. I mean, if you look at the political like state of that place in that period in time, I think the wars would have happened anyways. I mean, the religion was kind of a front for it, but if it weren't, I mean, everyone worships. So if it weren't the church, they'd be worshiping the state, and they'd be going off to kill for the state.
No, but it's true. But I think religion is a mode, and I think that the like existence of this idea of a singular path does come from, I think, what is historically true, that religion is a mode in which people can take control of a society. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I want to head off to bed. This was a nice conversation.
Right, are we rolling? Did we get a wrap on this?
Yeah.
We have been rolling, yes.
That's
Oh,
crazy.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah.
That's
I definitely have a few things to think about.
I feel like
Yeah.
honestly my perspective has been widened a lot. I really like your point about how like morality is kind of inherent.
Thank
So
you.
I've
You
never
and
thought
Seb
about
gave me
that
the
before.
wombo combo.
What is this song? Let's see what this sounds like.
Because the last time you had your soundboard
All right. Well, there's
It was-
Trumpets by Jason
Why don't you
Derulo.